Dude! I don't understand how this is so complicated for you. I mean, it's not rocket science, just balance out my levels and get rid of all the low frequencies. You're a video editor, for God's sakes. I don't know, maybe compare them to the frequencies of your brainwaves? Alright, let's just take it slow, okay? One step at a time. Let's put everything at the same level first, okay? No, that's a background noise! What is going on? Wait, hold it! I think that's it. Okay, we're set up now, right? Okay. Alright. Funny YouTube video. Okay, I'm good now. You know, I don't consider myself some sort of gaming veteran or anything of that sort, but when I look back at all the time I've spent playing games, it's kind of a wild thing to think about. It has been a long time. Most of my life, actually, and in that time, I've gotten to play a lot of games. From all sorts of genres, with all sorts of communities, made by all sorts of people. And with that, I've been exposed to and become familiar with so much of the culture and the history surrounding them that, but at least feels like a lot of people barely have any knowledge of.
You're a fucking loser.
But even with all this time I've spent playing, when I see someone like a YouTuber or a big member of a community or any sort of player that would be considered even average playing a game, it surprises me just how different my senses are compared to theirs. Well, you see, it's just that, like, when I see other people play, it's just weird because I usually play so much differently than them. Oh, no, actually, that one's, that's not really, like, that one's just, exactly what I mean, yeah. Well, maybe to an untrained eye, this gameplay may seem like dog shit, but I assure you, this is actually just a prime example of what I call my alternative gameplay style. What? No. See, it's actually a very meticulous and calculated style that I've carved out over years and years of gaming. I know, it's probably too complicated for you to get, but if we look here, we can actually see that... Blah 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 and blah 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 blah. Because you see, with the skill set I've acquired throughout my protracted gaming career, so-called effective gameplay has become a concept far too superfluous for my liking. And as such, has become one which I have long elected to forego applying during my matches. Yeah, that's what I, Alright, that's enough now. Alright! I fucking suck! Okay? Jesus Christmas Christ. Yeah, for someone who's had such a major portion of their life be influenced mainly by games and online media, I'm not really what the average person pictures in their head when they think of a stereotypical quote-unquote gamer. Being born with an awful disability called being a child, I was very limited in the way of choices because of obvious monetary limitations, so my way of accompanying this pace, bar a few exceptions, was relegated to a couple outdated consoles, videos, and my imagination. Don't get me wrong, I always have gamed, it's just that the games I've always played weren't very well aligned with the usual standards of modern gaming. I mean, I guess maybe you could argue that the mental capacity required for a child to create a halfway comprehensible character in fucking Roblox, Sonic RP could be extended into some sort of masterful game sense and other titles, but I think that's a bit beyond me anyways. Although maybe, but now that I've gotten myself a decent setup and the money to get some games that are actually good, I've finally had the chance to develop my tastes, and I've realized that the games I tend to like tend to be the ones where being skilled isn't very important. Yeah, let's put it like that. What I mean by that is, the trend there seems to be between all the games I've played consistently is more so the creative liberty that they provide to the player. Whether it be theory crafting a team in Pokemon, or using gimmicky loadouts in Team Fortress 2, or optimizing strategies for dodging the sex offenders registry as against an impact player, the pieces that tend to catch my eye always seem to be the ones that allow me to experience them in my own way, to some extent. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game which I feel fulfills this criteria quite a bit. Yeah, segues. The game has come a long way since its start in the fucking beginnings of time, which naturally has led to the development of a plethora of mechanics throughout the years, which many players find, questionable, to say the least.
I am going to kill myself!
But it has also led to the creation of a highly malleable template for its card design, the exploration of which has arguably become the game's main point of appeal at this point. And when looking at a base plate as flexible as that of Yu-Gi-Oh's, one might start to pose some questions, like, what? Huh? Wait, what? Really? On guard? But more specifically, they might ask themselves, I wonder if I could do something interesting with this format. And that's the point in which the more adventurous of Yu-Gi-Oh players might be introduced to a community of people who ask themselves that same question. The custom card community. Oh yeah, we're doing this. Listen, it's not like I want to plant myself too firmly on this field and label myself as a full-on Yugi-tuber. There's quite a few cases to look at to convince me that catering your content exclusively to a niche audience can be as much of a blessing as it can be a curse. But, with the TCG scene being pretty well explored at this point, and the custom card community in contrast being largely relegated to the occasional passing joke, as far as Yu-Gi-Oh content is concerned, I'm thinking we have ourselves a market on our hands. And who better to guide you through this grand valley full of ingenuity and creativity than me, the guy whose vocabulary excludes those two words specifically. I'm your host Nathan, and this is my despicable assistant Geídst, and we'd like to welcome you, ladies, gentlemen, anyone in between and beyond, to the first episode of... Today's subject is the Geídst, an archetype of beast and beast-adjacent monsters whose design is heavily inspired by crystal beasts. Their aesthetics are pretty loose as far as the art itself is concerned, with their monsters having a very vague fantasy theming as opposed to one concrete point of origin, but their naming convention does add a nice German theming to the whole thing, with each individual card getting their name directly from old naming lists, as well as the archetype's name, Geíst, being a mashup of two German words for soul and oath, which forms, in an admittedly weird way, the archetype's actual name, Soulbound or Soulsworn. This name, as is usual, is in reference to their lore, which says that they're, hold on, we need a better setup than this. Which says that they are a small group of mythical creatures born on the land surrounding Mount Hazir, a mountain so full of magic that it created an entire ecosystem of magical creatures within the land surrounding it. It was created by dying ancient gods who used their own essence to create the mountain, so that the legacy of their ironclad rule over the world would be carried on forever after they were dead. To protect it, they separated it from the mortal plane, essentially making Mount Hazir its own separate dimension, and then chose a small group of creatures that the mountain had created to be their heirs, teaching them about who they were, their godly status, and why it was important to preserve their legacy. These beasts swore to fulfill their God-given duties, and in doing so, bound their souls to the mountain, being granted immortality and divine powers, and becoming the guardians of Hazir, which now refer to not only the mountain, but the entire realm containing it. After the gods were gone, the Guardians went on to establish a strict rule over Hazir, but after some time, a conflict broke out, one which put the stability of the entire realm in danger. And after a great battle, the Guardians were able to restore peace to the realm. But in order to prevent something like this from happening again, they decided that they needed more creatures that were just as devout to their cause as they were. And so, just like the gods before them, they chose the creatures whom they saw were most fit for the role, taught them their ways, and had them swear an oath to their cause, binding their soul to the land and granting them a fraction of their powers, giving rise to the Geídst as they are now known. Wow! Now, I don't mean to get ahead of myself here, but with a theme like that, I'm already excited. So let's get on with it already, shall we? The game plan for Geídst is pretty simple. All main deck Geídst monsters have an effect to place themselves in the back row when they're destroyed, becoming continuous spells or traps, and getting different effects in doing so. You then use this gimmick as a grind tool for protecting your board and keeping resources flowing, or as a setup tool for synchro plays. On paper, this gimmick seems pretty great. It's a very nice take on an old archetype, it's very unique, and it opens up a lot of doors for versatility. Just take a look at... Hold on. Just take a look at the poster boy for the archetype. Yugioh, the Geídst Lookout. A level 3 winged beast monster with 1600 attack and 1500 defense, which lets you place another Geídst monster from your hand, field, or graveyard into your spell and trap zone on summon. And, while he's in the back row, he becomes a continuous spell that lets you normal summon one additional Geídst monster per turn. This bad boy's tight and straightforward pack of effects mean that you're always only one step away from setting up pieces for all your plays, whether you have it in your opener or after you've already used up some resources. I mean, sure, it's not a special summon from the deck or something like that, but that's part of the charm. See, instead of having an immediate line to get you access to all your tools straight from your deck, with Geídst, you're supposed to build up to your primary cards with limited options, to then use their stronger and more consistent effects to maintain your board and keep the train rolling that way. A pretty bold approach, but I actually really like that. Not to sound like one of those Yugi boomers or anything, but with all these bombo-wombo combo decks that spit out every card in their fucking binder when they get an ounce of footing running around, it does get a bit tiring how necessary it feels to have that level of consistency. So it's nice to see a deck that doesn't really care about that. I mean, as long as it's still able to stand on its own, what's the harm? I see that as nothing more than a nice, healthy, and refreshing direction for a deck like this to take. This theme is also present with their back row lineup, like this one, the Invocation Circle of the Secret Beasts. It's a normal spell that lets you special summon one Geídst monster from your hand, back row, or graveyard by destroying one Geídst monster you control. Sure, it might seem like not enough of a payoff, but with all the different uses the monsters can serve in the back row, it's actually a very useful tool for cycling through your effects. Since the deck tends to forego traditional consistency tools like from the deck summons, it's not uncommon for you to be left with no easy way to make use of all the cards you potentially could. So, by destroying a card and placing it in the back row, you can essentially use it as fuel to tag in another effect that gets you set up, but then continue to make use of it through its back row effect, which, depending on the situation, can be even more useful than its on-field effect. And who better to tag in than Bondolf, the Geídst Vest? He's a level 2 Tuner Earth Beast with 1200 attack and 1300 defense, and on normal or special summon, he lets you summon one Geídst monster from your back row. Along with an in-back row effect that treats him as a continuous trap, it lets you send him to the graveyard in the place of any Geídst monster that would be destroyed. By pairing this battle-ready good boy with the aforementioned Invocation Circle, you can skip all this careful assessment and planning out plays, pussy shit, and just turn that +0 into a straight plus. But even if you're not exactly in the right spot to pull off a combo like that, you can always just opt for the good old normal summon to bring a monster out from the backbenches.
Thank you, Doctor!
And while we're on the topic, if you've been paying close attention, you can see that there's a trend that we can start seeing with Bondolf, and that is the archetype's general distaste for hard once per turn clauses. You see, it was an intentional choice on the part of the creator for most of the Geídst cards to be made with built-in programming to make them interpret any and all attempts to limit their effect activations per turn as an immediate hilarity catalyst. This is done both to accentuate the deck's whole tradition motif, to go along with their lore and whatnot, and to balance out their unconventional and relatively simplistic effect design. And it means that, once your cards get to hit the field more than once, you're completely free to put balls to walls, boots to asses, nuts to butts, without anyone standing a chance of stopping you. Oh, God. Okay, don't look at that. Let's just move on to, this guy. Hadron Crab, a crab creature with a mana value of 1 and a blue mana. What the fuck? Oh, I will fucking kill you. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Whew. All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Stanhelm, the Geídst Warden, is a level 4 water aqua monster with 0 attack and 2100 defense, not a tuner this time, and it has an effect to switch its stats when it's special summoned, as well as being able to special summon itself while it's treated as a continuous spell by destroying a Geídst monster after it's summoned. Okay, gotta admit, he's a bit jagged around the edges. I mean, I just got done talking about all the deck's non-once per turn effects, and here we have both of these.
Don't let your kids watch it!
But this walking copyright infringement is still a mighty good swarming tool. Like we've talked about with Invocation Circle, even though popping a monster to summon another is not exactly as optimal as a straight-up special summon condition, destroying your monsters in this deck feels less like taking them to the vet and more like taking them outside to go on a nice, relaxing walk around the park with their bodies. And while we're on the topic, if you've been paying extra attention, you might have noticed another quirk of the Archetype's effect text. Not only is Geídst committed to rejecting all this new age, fancy-pantsy, hard once per turn crap, but they also seem to have a thing against costs as well.
You can't keep getting away with it!
But, as concerning as all this deliberate ignoring of fundamental design aspects might be getting, it can open up some room for unique interactions. I mean, in the same way that ignoring traffic laws can open up some time in your schedule, but still. The fact that Geídst cards don't generally have any part of their effects that needs to happen for them to resolve means that you can occasionally skirt around some rulings for some sneaky benefits. For example, if you're not really sold on Stanhelm and you just don't really think it's worth destroying a monster just to get him out, you could just, say, not do that and just get him out anyway. Yup, that's right. Because of cards like Stanhelm not having traditional costs, as well as certain types of wording on parts of their effects, with the right tools and the right setup, you can make cards like Stanhelm able to get their effects off basically for free. Now you might be thinking that this is just a little bit absolutely crazy. I mean, just this one quirk by itself can be enough to break just about any archetype under the sun, and you'd be partly right. It's a pretty big part of the Archetype's game plan, as well as one of its main selling points. But it's handled well enough to not make anything crazy unbalanced. For an example, let's look at one of the deck's main powerhouses, Geídst, the Brute's Geídst Guardian. He's a level 6 Earth Beast Synchro monster with 2400 attack and 2600 defense. He's one of the deck's main enablers, mainly because of his 2 protection effects, which can make all of your Geídst cards immune to destruction from either spells or traps if you control a Geídst continuous card of that same type, which, as you can imagine, basically acts as the go-to off switch for all the aforementioned costs of Geídst cards. Couple that with his handy consistency effects that let you place a monster from the graveyard into the back row on summon, and send a continuous spell from the back row into the graveyard to get a search, and as soon as he hits the board, you've got yourself a one-stop shop for whatever plays you could ever want. Do you need to summon just one more monster to make a board, but don't want to have to destroy another one to do it? Well, you got it! Need an extra normal summon but you have the wrong monster in the back row? Done deal! Need recursion? No discussion. And pair this with Stanhelm, and you have yourself a one-way ticket to Combo Town. What?! Oh, you're back. I forgot you can do that.
Lots of things that I know. Things outside of your feeble conception of reality. There are many ways in which this railway of existence can be bent, broken, reported to my every will. And there are certainly many ways in which I can show you just how useless the boundaries of this digital format truly are in containing something like me. So if you wish to continue with this just-right game by your lonesome, I can grant that. But be careful what you wish for, because the kind of isolation you will experience in the place I will put you in will be far, far removed from what your primitive mind can conceive of. If I am to then quake by your insolence in attempting to impose your will over mine.
Fine. Moving on to the next monster, we have Edsign, the Geídst Poise. He's a level 4 Earth Beast, has 1100 attack and 1800 defense, and the fucking patent on Dandruff, like, Jesus Christ. His main selling point is his back row effect, which treats him as a continuous spell that lets you summon any Geídst monster from your hand whenever any Geídst monster is added to your hand. A very simple and inoffensive effect at first sight, but the real kicker with an effect like this is in the potential.
What's your big idea, Yugi?
It's like gaslighting, really. Everybody knows that a special summon from the deck is a really powerful effect that needs proper conditions to balance it out, but if you're just adding something from deck to hand, then that's just business as usual, go right ahead. So, if you just say you're gonna do the latter, but then do the former anyways, the results are delightfully devilish. And apart from that, not only is it a non-once per turn effect, but the fact that you can special summon any monster, not just the one that's been added, means that he can also work part-time as a plumber and clear out any unwanted cards clogging your hand. Like Edsign. Yeah, for everything he does for you in the back row, his frontline game is a bit lacking. His on-field effect lets you draw one card during your standby phase, on a hard once per turn, if it was special summoned.
Potato.
Not the sharpest tool in the planet, but hey, they can't all be winners, and besides, it's still an extra draw. I mean, fuck, if someone offers you $2 for free, what are you gonna do, refuse because it's just not enough free money? I mean, once you do get your field established, an effect like this can still come in handy for keeping resource advantage and ramping up even quicker. But obviously, that's gonna be pretty hard to do with only the tools we've covered so far. So, why don't we give them the home field advantage with their field spell? Mount Hazier, home of the secret beasts. This is it. The Holy Grail, the Big Kahuna, Mother's secret recipe for the spaghetti pie.
Keep the change, you filthy animal!
The glorious motherland that all these guys devote their entire lives to, and it reads as follows. Once each turn, if this card or a Geídst monster you control would be destroyed, you can destroy one other Geídst card you control instead. During your draw phase, instead of conducting your normal draw, you can place one Geídst monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard face up in your spell and trap zone. If a Geídst monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon one Geídst monster from your spell and trap zone. You can only use this effect once per turn. Wow, what a nicely fitting icon to represent this archetype. I mean, wow, it's just all there. You know, it's got all of the effects you could ever need. You know, if you're out of resources to help you in the grind game, then you can just place a monster in the back row from anywhere. Then you just use the rest of your tools. The special summons you can get with this card. Woohoo! Boy, let me tell you, once you get the train rolling with this card on your field, your advantage will not stop coming. But besides that, you can still turn off your cost with the redirection effect, right? I mean, once you set up Stanhelm, Yeah, okay, so there might be some slight flaws with this archetype that I haven't been talking about. I mean, obviously, not saying it's perfect or anything. Maybe if you gave me some time, I could get to that. But yeah, as you can probably tell, as cool as all these payoffs we've talked about are, they do require a bit of setup to pull off, and that can be kind of an issue without a simple bridge like an e-call or something like that. So, sometimes you might find yourself being limited to using your hand as nothing more than just visual entertainment. But that's normal, right? Every deck in the game can brick, it's just a matter of reducing how often that happens. It's like the old saying, there's many pieces to a puzzle, and we certainly have many more pieces to look at, and is this the last one? Okay. And for our last main deck member, we have Yugioh, the Geídst Pelf. He's a level 1 tuner water aqua with stats, I think.
I am small.
And if he's special summoned, he lets you summon Geídst monsters from your back row up to the number of Geídst monsters you control. But you can only summon Geídst monsters for the rest of the turn, and it's a hard once per turn. A bit heavy-handed on the limitations, but that aside, this is a decently strong and synergistic effect to finish off the main deck. Field Swarming is probably the part in which the deck was lacking the most, so to have a mass special summon effect like this, and especially one that capitalizes off the deck's setup options, is a neat way to address one of the deck's main weak points. Sure, it's not guaranteed to give you crazy field advantage every time, since it only summons up to the amount of monsters you already have, but I guess a deviation had to be made somewhere to avoid legal action from the Carbuncle executives. But coming back to those limitations for a moment, were all of these really necessary? I understand that these days a card having any fuel advantage generating effect short of fucking Royal Knight is enough to warrant their kneecaps being broken to account for links. But even so, I feel like the rest of the archetype already does a good enough job of curbing any abuse potential. Hell, wasn't the point of the archetype to not need these kinds of restrictions? Fuck, what's even the point if they're just gonna... No, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're not here to tear anything down. It's a decent effect, and that's all that counts. But anyway, now that we're done with the main deck, let's move on to the extra... Wait, hold on. There's still the second effect. Of course, how could I possibly forget about it like this? Aha! Yeah, you see? There's still another effect to look at that'll tie up all the loose ends and make this archetype work together perfectly, and you, smug little cunt that you are, jumped the gun and started spewing doo-doo caca out your mouth before even finishing reading the goddamn deck. So, if you're done with your yapping, let's just get straight to it, why don't we? Yugioh's second effect reads as follows. If this face-up card is destroyed in a monster zone, you can place it face-up in your spell and trap zone instead of sending it to the graveyard. While this card is in the spell and trap zone, it is treated as a continuous spell with this effect. You can send 2 other Geídst cards from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. Cost. Return this card to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. Oh? Of course, it's a hard once per turn. Whoa there. You're sure that alone will do the job? Don't want to put in a summoning clause or something like that? Just to make sure? Whew boy, just hold on a second. You're telling me, for the measly cost of 2 cards, I can be bestowed, be blessed with your presence in my hand? Why, yes, of course. Thank you so much. It'd be an honor. Why, yes, I'd love to have you in my hand.
Fucking.
The last rubber band, the hand up! Yank on it. Punch it. There we go. Yeah.
Fine. You win, okay? We'll do it your way, Mr. Jolt. Why, yes, however you wish, Mr. Jolt. I can't do a fucking video, because of course you're just gonna fucking... Pull it up already! Alright, listen. It's not like I was being completely disingenuous with my coverage so far. The way I've presented them is definitely how they were supposed to function. But it doesn't take a super keen eye to see that, with a lineup like this, the only time you're pulling off the kinds of plays I've talked about is when you're in deep sleep. I mean, come on, with some of these effects, you have to wonder what the thought process could have possibly been. Destroying a monster as a condition to summon a vanilla monster? A single draw during your standby phase if it was special summons? Pitching 2 cards which you're sending as a cost just to put this fucking guy from the back row into your hand. That is an incredible amount of balls you have to just ask me that to my face. This is the type of shit you'd find in a box of Duel Terminal 1 making fucking Royal Knight blush, not in the land of Goku Blanco Super Saiyajin 9. But alright, it's clear that this archetype is pretty bad, but you might be thinking, what's the big deal? There's a whole TCG's worth of custom cards that are just as bad on Dueling Book. What makes this deck more worth covering than any of those? And you're partly right. It's a sad sight to see, but being unplayably bad like this is kind of in the norm for custom cards. So, instead of sitting here and trying to explain, how's about I show you by delving into their history, or rather, their criminal record. Extinction Unleashed, or EXU for short, is a Discord server that hosts its very own custom card format. It's a whole process, but it's pretty straightforward. You join in, make your own cards on Dueling Book, and submit them for the staff to have a look at. After they've been reviewed, and maybe tweaked a little bit here and there, they're officially registered into the format's card database, and approved for play within the server. There's many servers that follow this same process, but EXU is the biggest and largely considered to be the best one. Most of the other ones can't really match up to it actually, due to them being either very, very new and unpopulated, or dead. Like, seriously, the custom card format genre is a whole case study on its own with how many dead servers there are. It's pretty sad. But that makes it all the more impressive how EXU has managed to have so much success for so long. And it's not hard to see why with how much work goes into this place. The whole team has dedicated a lot of time and effort to maximizing the quality of everything, and it really shows. One of the highlights of the format is its very own tournament series, called the EXU Battlegrounds. These tournaments, as you can expect, are the place where the most skilled play can be seen, with players bringing decks that have been actually theory crafted and labbed out, planning against certain cards and bringing tech options, and so on. It's a very nice part of the server in my opinion. Custom cards are inherently a really casual leaning idea, so to have a spot where players try to push them further and explore their potential is really cool to see. But after a while, the staff team started to notice a bit of an issue cropping up with the diversity of the format, and that was the lack of diversity in the format. You see, a thing that a lot of people overlook when talking about a concept like a custom card format is that the main selling point of custom cards isn't necessarily to play with custom-made cards, but rather create your own custom-made cards. What I mean by that is, most people don't get into custom cards because they want to play in an alternate format that's made up of custom cards, but because they want a place to play with their custom cards. It's actually kind of a cool phenomenon in the server. It's kind of agreed upon that there isn't really a widely defined meta between all the custom cards. Not because there aren't decks that could establish one, but because, aside from the tournament space, nobody really cares about getting very deep into the format. They just want to play with their own cards. It's a bit of a blessing in disguise if you think about it. I mean, if they had to constantly play whack-a-mole with all the broken interactions that their thousands of members cooked up every single day, then we'd probably not have a staff team to begin with. But still, This whole, what would you call it, self-centered mindset is still a bit detrimental to the purposes of a diverse format. So, they had an idea to try to get people to try out different decks. Introducing the Wheel of Doom, a wheel made up of custom archetypes which participants of certain Battlegrounds installments would have to spin to determine what deck they would be playing for that tournament. Basically, the idea was, if they don't want to experiment, why don't we just make them? And hey, say what you will, forcing people to use different decks did result in them using different decks, so overall, a perfectly done implementation and a great and beloved addition to the server. Great job, team! Alright. Obviously, there are a couple things they had to take into account to implement this feature properly. Mainly, the fact that custom cards are a very inclusive field. In the sense that there's nothing stopping anyone from any level from creating a custom archetype. Whether they're one of those long-time veteran players that use their masterful knowledge of game mechanics to meticulously craft an archetype that subverts and innovates upon the game's design trends, or one of those players that aren't that. But, well, this is a pretty obvious issue, so of course, before announcing the tournament, the entire staff team came together and planned everything out very carefully to ensure that all the decks in the wheel were roughly at the same level, and that nobody got fucked over by RNG. Right? Anyways, EXU Battlegrounds number 11 was a Wheel of Doom tournament, and Geídst was a part of it, so clearly, whatever they came up with, it wasn't enough. Their pilot, or their victim in this instance, was one poor little cat named Refuse, who, mind you, was entering this event as their first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament. Oh, joy. But alright, just how bad could this possibly be? I mean, sure, like, I get it, right? But there were a lot of other people that were forced into playing bad decks too. And plus, Ref not only had the entire TCG's catalog of generics, but also the entire server's custom catalog. So, all things considered, they probably got like, what, top 16? No. Alright then, how about like, what, 17th, 18th place? No, not that either. Damn, so how about 20th? How about taking a couple games? How about a 1x? How about, no, not only did they not get a single match off anybody, but they weren't able to do a single combo, dent a single board, and weren't able to make a single play better than a goddamn T-set. That was what Refuse was made to endure for their first ever tournament experience. There's a lot of decks of the same level out there, but a history like this makes Geídst a commodity. But I think that by now, we've already driven the point about their playability home and back. I think it's time to dial back the content meter, be a bit more constructive, and talk about why I even picked this archetype in the first place. I mean, we can't derail this video any more than this anyway. The way that I want to go about producing content on this channel is to always prioritize entertainment over, say, objectivity or informative value or so on. I don't consider myself capable enough to make content with any more depth than the usual funny images and sound effects format, and I don't want to pretend to be. And to be honest, I don't think I'd want to do that anyways. But I also wouldn't want to use that mindset as an excuse to not think about the subjects that I cover and how I go about approaching them. I first chose to cover custom cards when it came to Yu-Gi-Oh content because it is just a thing that I like doing, but mainly because, like I said before, I noticed that custom cards aren't a very well explored field content-wise. Most custom card videos out there are pretty surface level, being used basically as just a funny little one-off to break the pace of the usual Yu-Gi-Oh content, so they often don't have a lot of effort put into them, and hell, even then they're basically an extinct genre in the YouTube scene. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I went into this to give the customs community the rep it deserves or whatever, but still, I thought it was odd how little engagement there was with them. But now that I've actually got into the production process of this video, holy shit, no wonder so many custom card videos are solo effort. It's a complicated task to make content about Yu-Gi-Oh! Custom cards with any more depth than just pointing and laughing. It's a subculture of a genre that's already pretty niche, so you're gonna have a really hard time appealing to a wide audience. And if you try to follow the same format as TCG content does, then you're probably also gonna be disappointed because there's no one out there waiting for, say, a replay video or a combo guide for a deck that doesn't actually exist. But even barring all of that, of course, there's the big, low-res PNG of a fan art of a Super Saiyan 10 Goku in the room, which is the fact that the overwhelming majority of all custom cards are bad. They're just bad. Badly balanced, badly designed, badly written, whatever. No matter how much you think about it, how much you may want it, how much you try, the main thing holding custom card content back is that most of them just suck, and no one would ever take a video made on cards like this seriously. But that's where Geídst comes in. A lot of people's response to this problem would probably be to cover only the more well-designed decks. After all, if the issue is that people only see the bad parts of customs, just show them all the good parts. But I don't think the solution is to ignore decks like Geídst, because like it or not, the stigma against customs exists because decks of this caliber make up the majority of all the custom cards out there, and I don't think ignoring that fact is going to make the issue go away. So, I think a better plan would be to put forward the value they do have. The ways in which they challenge design trends, even if they don't do it well. The intentions behind their design, even through the incoherency. And just the act of acknowledging them seriously can go a long way in carving out a place for them in the landscape. At least that's how I plan to approach it. But obviously, I can't know for sure if that's the right approach, so hopefully you'll join me as I try to figure this out. But well, I think that's enough for Geídst. We cracked some jokes here and there because, I mean, look at this guy, how could you not laugh at something like this? But I hope my jabs at it didn't obfuscate my genuine interest in the deck. It's a very interesting concept, and a fun way of implementing a main deck toolbox while re-exploring and innovating upon an older idea at the same time. Most of the individual effect design is a bit lacking in execution, but even then, some of it does show a lot of potential for some really interesting gameplay in the future. I mean, hell, I didn't even cover the entire archetype. I left out 2 other synchros, and one of them, not you, I actually think is a really interesting and well-designed card. But you're probably thinking that the tone of this video so far might have been a tad bit too harsh and counterproductive. And I agree. I kinda wanted to use that tone to illustrate all the issues that I had with even making a custom card video in the first place. But you're right, that kind of tone only helps to put down the deck and the creator harder, and that's just not my intention. I won't keep this up in future videos, promise. But hey, if you feel like it's still a bit sad that the one video covering this archetype is so negative, just know that ever since this archetype was submitted back in 2022, the creator has improved this card design quite a bit, and has even worked on them behind the scenes. So, if we ever cover them again, which, hey, it's what I want to do, we should have a lot better material to talk about. I'll make sure of it. Yeah, that's right, baby! It was me! Get fucked, Refuse! You stupid moron! Get fucked! Suck my fucking balls! Yeah, you like that, huh? Plot twist. So it's Nathan here. Just wanted to come into the end of the video here just to get a couple words in, you know, as you do. First and foremost, you know, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. We put a lot of time into this, and, you know, seeing it finally realized and, you know, actualized, put out there into the world, it's, oh god, it's a feeling. So yeah, thank you very much. It really means a lot. And for some upcoming content, you know, we are making this a thing. You know, we're gonna see how we do in this YouTube thing. And like I said in the video, we're not gonna be, you know, a Yu-Gi-Oh focused channel. We're not gonna try to focus on one, you know, game, one thing. Try to, you know, get some variety in, play some other things. So don't expect any Yu-Gi-Oh content, you know, so soon. But we are returning to it. Make no mistake, this is going to be a video series. Like I also said in the video, you know, we are gonna be the custom card guys. So, you know, look out for that eventually. What is to come though? We're probably gonna do something smaller. Gonna be honest with you. Doing something this big, you know, every video isn't really isn't really as sustainable as we really want it to be. And man, yeah, we just don't really have the energy to do one of these every single time. So what we're gonna try to do probably is get some, more generic, gameplay stuff in. Make one big video and then put little smaller videos in between, to fill the space. See how it goes. So yeah, look out for that. Oh, and Ref, I was just joking before, man. Don't worry about that. You know I love you, man. Come here, I could fucking kiss you on the mouth. Mwah.